This episode has been brought to you by JustNForm.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to JustNForm.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
So, Governor Northam isn't having a good week. But it's okay. It's okay. Well, it's not okay for him. It's not okay for him. But I am kind of glad that something like this happened because it gives us an opportunity to have a genuine philosophical conversation about what took place, take a genuine observation at the results, and of course, which is probably, especially in today's outrage culture, most importantly, we need to look at the reactions to what happened, and the demands that are being asked. Now, if you're curious, I do believe that he probably should resign. Let's be clear. If you're wearing blackface, you're racist, right? You're probably racist. If you're in a KKK mask, you're super racist. And if you're wearing blackface next to a guy in a KKK mask, you're perfectly fine with it. You're probably a racist. Now, with that being said, if you came here to just listen to me emotionally rage about how Northam should never be allowed to do anything in his life, never make up for what he's done, I'm not here to do that. I'm here to have a deeper debate and hopefully break down the consequences, really, of some of the reactions because I don't feel like a lot of them are genuine. But first, I do want to address the fact that he is being asked to resign. I think that it's appropriate for him to resign. And the reason why, it isn't because people can't change. I've read a couple of posts from people who actually know Northam who said that they can't even believe that that's the same guy in either of those costumes. And these are black people who said this, and that's probably true. But they asked him to resign also. And I would agree. People can evolve. People will evolve, especially in politics when they know their career is on the line. But in my opinion, a fundamental issue with what Northam has done is that if he felt it was okay to be in either of those costumes, that meant up until that point in his life, while he was in medical school, so that means he went 14 or 15 years with being around racism, seeing racism, participating in racism, allowing racism to take place around him. He went 14 or 15 years being entrenched in casual racism that there had not been one single significant or noteworthy consequence that he could remember that would stop him from doing what he did in that picture. He thought racism was a joke. He thought it was funny. He thought that the terror that the KKK once struck into many black people's lives from the South to the Midwest and even in some cases in the North, like he thought that was a laughing matter. He thought that blackface, the same blackface that movie pictures used to use to depict black men in order to convince the world that we wanted to rape their white women. I mean, if you didn't know, that's essentially what King Kong was about. But they used to try and depict black men in blackface to either make us look stupid or make the world believe that we wanted to rape their women. And that has had a lasting effect and it rippled throughout the decades and eventually the century, where black men are seen as monsters and terrorizers, even though we're not. In fact, you're much more likely to be raped by a white man. Just saying. But that's just statistically speaking. I mean, we can't get mad at the facts, okay? I'm just saying. If you're going to be robbed, it's probably by a black man because, well, on average, we're poor and that's why people rob people. but that's also because of the white man. But we're not gonna go there. That's not what we're talking about right now. Look, I can't help the facts. I just tell them. Anyway, but in all seriousness, I think it's important for people to see, and if Governor Northam is truly remorseful, which there is part of me that believes he really might be remorseful, then it's his responsibility to step down and show that there should be consequences to actions such as these. I truly believe that. And then if he was smart, he would probably go out and pursue a life of black activism. But it's more important to me that he step down and show that there are consequences, right? If he has kids, I don't know if he has kids. I think he does. But if he has kids, don't you want to show your kids, I am remorseful for what took place, and you need to know, and whatever child in Virginia who's been looking up to me as a governor, as a person, needs to know that when you do things like this, when you allow racism, when you participate in racism, then it's important for you to know that there will be consequences. Yes, there are inherent biases within every single person. Because that's how we've been conditioned. That's how we've been conditioned. And unfortunately, we can't do that much about them except for confront them and try to smooth them over with educating ourselves and gaining proper experience. But the only way we can gain experiences, it isn't just good experiences, it's consequences. It's conditioning. There are two types of conditioning. And one of those conditionings is consequential conditioning. One of the types. Consequential as in, I don't do this because it's bad and there may be a punishment attached. To act as a deterrent. This also shows for people who say, well, racism ended in the 1950s. We can't do anything about it legislatively. It's already been taken care of. Racism doesn't exist anymore. It's very, very, very rare. You hear that over and over and over again. And it's frustrating to hear because I've lived in the South. I've lived in New York. I live in Miami. I've had stints in California, Northern California. And it's as diverse as many of the places that I've lived are, racism can still exist. It has different forms, but it can still exist. But this picture wasn't taken in the 60s, not in the 50s, not in the 40s. This picture was taken in 1984 in Virginia. Racism had ended, according to many people. But I always have to have these conversations with people about what systemic racism looks like. Because people don't get it. They're like, I don't understand. How can jobs be racist? Jobs wouldn't do that to black people. It doesn't make any sense because they think of as a job or a hiring manager as this abstract concept that's totally altruistic and they act within a vacuum and have no biases from their experiences, which is the silliest thing I have ever heard, in my opinion. But some people who've lived in a bubble feel like that. But that's not the case. They do have their experiences, and they have been led to believe certain things about minorities. And that though there are studies that have proven that. This was a kid at one point who went to medical school. In medical school, he was wearing either blackface or KKK or comfortable with being around either and thought it was comical on top of all of it. That kid, potentially racist, we don't know if he could have or might not have evolved, but we do know this. That potentially racist kid became a governor of Virginia. Think about that. And so if he can be a governor, imagine who can be a cop, who can be a judge, who could be a teacher, potentially determining the outcome of your child's future, a professor, an academic advisor. This is the reality that we live in. I'm not assigning that label to I guess I don't know Northam personally. We don't know if he's absolutely racist, but we do know this. There is a possibility that he could very well still be racist. There is that possibility. But he could be, and he is the governor. And if you think racism just stops at Northam's costume in 1984 in medical school, then you're wrong and you're naive. People saying, I don't want to say that this is they did a poll. They conducted a poll where it said it was like 60 something percent of Americans, of white Americans specifically. It was geared towards white people. They don't care. They either don't think racism exists or they're unbothered by it. And if you don't care racism exists or you're unbothered by it, it's probably because you might be an active participant in it. Or you're unconcerned because it doesn't affect you. And if you're unconcerned because it doesn't affect you, it probably means you're benefiting from that system. And you're going to fight either consciously or unconsciously to preserve that system, even if it means playing the victim, which we've seen often. Lastly, I want to touch on the Democrats' reactions. You knew this was coming. It's political. Had to get political. I know we had a lot of philosophy, but the political side is extremely important too, from a practical standpoint, because you saw people like Andrew Gillum and Gillibrand and Senator Warren and a few others just outright demanding Gotham's resignation. Outright demanding it. And in fact, pretty sure if we go to Kamala Harris's Twitter, and this is going to be the first time I look at it because I wanted to do it with you all so we can be not surprised together. Leaders are called to a higher standard. Oh God, this is starting off better than I could have imagined. Okay, let's continue. And the strain of racism should have no place in the halls of government. Yeah, probably. Okay. The governor of Virginia should step down so the public can heal and move forward together. She said the leaders are called to a higher standard, and the strain of racism should have no place in the halls of government. Kamala, what a coincidence. I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. So are we just talking about symbolic racism or systemic racism? Racism that we know exists in the justice system. Racism that we know affects people's job prospects. Racism that you yourself help perpetuate. And because our leaders, you heard it from the horse's mouth. I'm not a fellow Democrat, I'm independent, but all the other Democrats who are backing Kamala, completely complicit and her hand in the prison industrial complex, in a prison system that we know is inherently racist and biased towards Black people and minorities in general. She herself said that leaders should be held to a higher standard. You heard it from the horse's mouth. I'm not saying that she should probably be, just thrown under the bus after a comment like that. But Kamala said it herself. Leaders should be held for a higher standard, and racism, symbolic, systemic, or otherwise, should be struck down. So why still are Democrats so outraged about the symbolic damage that Northam has contributed to, rather than being outraged about the actual and real damage that Kamala Harris has committed? And that's why I say we have to be careful about how we react. We can react out of genuine concern. But when it comes to a mob mentality, when we don't understand why he needs to resign, because yes, racism is bad, but there's a deeper conversation to be had, like the one we had earlier in the video. There's a deeper, more nuanced conversation to be discussed to make sure that this does not happen going forward, and that people don't think racism in the past, or anybody who's made mistakes in the past, can't be reconciled. Yeah, they can be reconciled, but understand when you make bad decisions that could offend or potentially hurt physically or otherwise other people, yeah, there may be consequences. So think twice before you do it. But that doesn't mean you can't grow out of those consequences. What the Democratic Party is showing Kamala is that her actions, because of the team she plays for, will have no consequences. And because she's Black and is being tokenized, and she is indeed being tokenized, that we can overlook the lives you've damaged. And that's the message we want to send the future young Democrats. That as long as you play ball and let us use you, you can get away with whatever you want to. And we'll even let you point the finger when you like without critique. I'm curious as to what you think about this. Well, like I said, Northam should absolutely resign, but I really, really wish that the Democrats would be as outraged about the real damage that Kamala Harris has caused, rather than the symbolic damage that Northam caused. Because, well, let's be honest, Kamala, being Black, should have known. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.